Hello, and welcome to Amongst the Books, a podcast for kids, by kids, and yes, adults too. And no, I'm not a kid, though I wish I still was. My students call me Miss S, and I'm happy to introduce Episode 10 to you today. What could be more devastating than a teenager having their phone taken from them? How about learning that a race of small alien creatures are trying to take over the world? We get to sit down with author Mat Heagerty and Oni editor Robyn Herrera to discuss his book, Unplugged and Unpopular, a book Kristen Gudsnook calls a funny, vibrantly illustrated graphic novel packed full of surprises. We get to talk about Mat's inspiration, how he tackles the writing process, new books he's working on, and how they work together to develop a title. The kids were really excited to talk to our two special guests, so let's jump right in.
Hi, my name is Zainab, and my first question is that, coming from your story Unplugged and Unpopular, have you always believed in magic and aliens?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've always at least liked the idea of it. I don't know if I so much believe in the idea of magic, but I think I still believe in aliens. So yeah, I think I have since as long as I can remember.
What was it like? I don't know. I guess I'm trying to. Was it something that you were like interested in even as like a little kid? Like, was that like that always caught your attention?
Yeah, I think I lived like half the time in reality and half the time in fantasy myself. I was always head in the clouds. And yeah, I think I definitely still believe there's aliens, because I think it'd be silly to think that there's just us in the universe.
Right.
It's too big of a place. But then fantasy and magic, I like to think that there would be, but there's a little bit too much logic in me sometimes with it. Yeah.
And Robyn, how about you? Were you also a alien believer, magic believer?
As a kid, I did not actually believe in aliens. I believed in some magic. I still believe in ghosts, which I think are, I guess, supernatural is a kind of magic. I do now believe that there's got to be aliens out there somewhere. I don't know if they're as advanced as some people think, able to find us. But given how big the universe is, it seems very likely that there's definitely other races of, species out there somewhere.
All right, excellent.
What inspired you to write this story?
My daughter was born, and I was thinking about how we didn't have cell phones when I was a kid, and I didn't have that as part of my life, and we didn't have like social media and the same way, and we definitely didn't carry around like the internet in our pocket. So I was just kind of thinking about how I was using social media and how I was, taking pictures of my daughter like all the time and posting them online, and I'm like just finding myself just really into my phone and having it attached to me. And I just was thinking about how I want to talk about that with like how I want to have my relationship with social media and my relationship with the internet, and what I might suggest for my daughter when she gets older. And that kind of was the start of it, at least. That was what got me first thinking.
Do you find that, I know because I see it a lot with the kids and myself even too, like, yeah, I'm kind of glued to my phone and everything. Do you kind of see it where like, we've kind of detached ourselves a little bit more?
For sure. I find myself, every once in a while, I'll find myself, I work as a bartender actually, as my normal regular 9-to-5 job. And over the years, I've noticed more and more people just on their phones
right
at the bar instead of a normal conversation that used to be very normal, that you would go into a bar and strike up a conversation with a stranger. And I see a little more than I'd like. I see people kind of glued into their phones, which I understand. I am guilty of it myself. I definitely, there's a lot to be found on the phone, so it's pretty easy. And I think something that I'm starting to realize more and more is that there's just a different type of socializing that happens. Like, I'm able to talk to friends online about my real interests, and I have some great friends that are all over the world because of the internet and because of that stuff. So my thoughts are evolving on it ever.
Right.
How did you guys come up with the title Unplugged and Unpopular for the story?
Well, that originally it was actually called Cordless Girl when I first pitched it to Oni. That's the publisher of the book, where Robyn is like the best editor in the world at. And I think initially we had a list, Robyn, right? There was like a list of different titles that we talked about after we decided that Cordless Girl wouldn't work as a title. And I'm not sure how I liked the un and un. That was the thing I liked the best.
Right.
But I'm not sure exactly where it came from.
Robyn, what made you want to did you feel that it just wasn't hitting the I hate to use the word chord, but do you feel like it wasn't hitting the right chord?
Actually, I remember it was a request from my supervisors. So when the pitch was going through acquisitions, I think they noted that the problem with the title The Cordless Girl was that it takes place in the future, and more we're seeing technology that doesn't actually have cords.
Right.
So they thought it felt a little dated to indicate a cord in there. So that's where we came up with Unplugged.
Okay. All
so
right.
I think that's a little bit more clear on, what happens. And then I think when people think of a cordless, or probably when kids think of a cordless, and maybe the kids there can answer this, but when you think of the word cordless, adults tend to think of the first cordless phone, probably.
Right.
And that was like a big deal when that came out. And that was like a phone that didn't have the cord that attached it to the base. You could actually take that cordless phone all around your house. It was amazing. But what do you kids think of when you hear the word cordless?
That's the question to you guys. What do you guys think of when you hear the word cordless?
I think of a landline that got its cord cut.
They're saying they think of a landline that got its cord cut.
So that's good. Yeah, so that was the fear of using the word cordless, was that it would be tied to a landline or a phone specifically.
Right.
But the deal with Erin is that she's not looking at any screens at all. It's not just that she can talk on the phone.
Right. Exactly.
So, and I found our email where we talked about different titles. Most of them had Unplugged in them, and Matt came up with most of them, so that was good. So he had Erin's song is Unplugged and Unpopular. Just thought about using the main character's name in the title. Then he had Unplugged and Unpopular. Erin's song is Offline. Erin's song is Unplugged. And then, if Erin was a rock star and had a special on MTV, Erin Unplugged.
Oh, okay.
That was a good one. I like that one. But we ended up going with Unplugged and Unpopular. Like Matt said, the combination of the two un words, we really liked. And we also liked that it kind of got at the heart of why Erin makes a lot of her choices is because she's unpopular and wants to be popular.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. See how you guys go about that process. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a fun process.
All of it is. So much of this is fun. And every stage that I'm learning is more fun. I never thought I would be marketing's fun, but even that's fun. It's a really cool thing to get to do.
That's great.
How did you decide what to write on, and did you have other ideas of other books, other ideas to write about, or were you just stuck on that?
Yeah, I have. I think I maybe have too many ideas sometimes. I have to slow myself down a little bit and really focus on them. But I actually have. I think I can say this. There's 3 more books that will be eventually coming from Oni that are all different ideas, and quite a few other actually that are out there that will be coming in the next couple years or so. And how I come up with them is always different. It's always something. It's always like a melding of a couple ideas together, a couple things that seem interesting. I try and make sure that they all are unique from each other. You know, I don't wanna retell the same story.
Right.
Robyn, can I mention the one the one that we're doing together, or should I hold off from that stuff?
Yeah, you can talk about it. Just don't say the title.
Okay. So there's the next book that Robyn and I are working on together is kind of an almost autobio book about when I was in middle school. So that's a little different than the rest of the stuff that I'm doing. That's more true fiction.
Okay.
And that's about basically I have dyslexia, and when I was younger, I definitely was like really self-conscious about it, and self-conscious about not being a great student. And so I started a band. I ended up starting a band, and in the band was the smartest kid in school, and we kind of befriended each other. And I gained a lot of confidence from being in a band with someone who, him seeing me as a peer made me feel a little more positive about myself.
Right. Almost like the unlikely friendship.
Yeah, definitely.
Very nice. Well, we're definitely looking forward to that one, so.
Hey. Excellent.
When you wrote your story Unplugged and Unpopular, did you have a specific feeling or emotion that led you to write about a topic like that?
Curiosity. I think I was just really curious and thinking about technology a bunch. That got me going. And then I'm always in a very, very happy mood, usually. I'm a pretty positive, smiley person, so trying to write things to make myself laugh and just throw positivity out there.
Well, it's always good to be positive. We like that. The world needs a little more positivity.
I agree.
In Unplugged and Unpopular, are any of your friends that you have today in your book?
Not really, but the main character's name is Aaron. That's my sister's name. The 2 twins are named Charlie and Joe, and my grandpa was a twin named Charlie, and he had a brother named Joe. So names are in there, but not actually people. But I think every story I end up putting a lot of either my personality or friends around me in. Like there's a lot of my wife actually in Aaron. A lot of like her spunk and everything reminds me of my wife.
That's always a good thing. Put the good stuff in there.
How long did the process of writing the book, editing the book, and publishing the book take?
Actually, quite a while. I submitted the book into like an open submissions thing that Oni did back in 2015. And
That was the beginning of 2015 too. So I think it was around May.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I had a lot of learning to do. This is like I had done some comics before, but this is my first like comic kind of on this level, I guess. And I think there was a little bit of time where I'm so grateful for Robyn really helped me work through the story. Actually, Robyn helped me so much in comics. She's like the best teacher ever. I learned a lot from her. Of course, thank you. But so that we worked on a draft for a little while, got it better, then it handed over to Tintin Pentoa, who's the artist, and I'd say, yeah, it was about like 4 years, I think, from when we Oni took the book in till it was on shelf. It was quite a while.
Yeah. Slightly. No, it's almost exactly 4 years. Yeah, we acquired the book kind of in late 2015 with Tintin attached as the artist, and then Tintin worked pretty diligently to get the whole book drawn, and I feel like that took about 2.5 or 3 years total.
Wow.
And then, or actually maybe it probably took about 2.5, because Matt, you and I worked on the script for probably a couple months at least, right?
Yeah, and then there's a part, basically when you're done with the book, there's still almost a year from when you finish it till it comes out, which maybe Robyn can speak to a little better as being such a part of her job.
Once the book is kind of close to being done, and in our case, it was when it was not too long after Tintin had finished all the ink, and we had a colorist who was starting to color the pages, and that's Mike Amante. He's a very, very good colorist. I'm really glad that I got to work with him.
Me too.
So as he was coloring the pages, I also hired a letterer named Hassan Otsmain Elhouse. He's also a really good letterer, so we have an awesome team. And while they were doing their part, I told the higher ups in the company, I was like, okay, this book is ready to be placed on the calendar for our next season that we are planning. And in book publishing, you plan for a book to come out roughly at least a year before the sale date.
Okay.
So about a year before the sale date, you want to have almost everything done, and you're getting ready to announce the book.
Wow.
And that's because in publishing, there's a lot of importance about making a book available to reviewers before it comes out. Because reviewers, if they like a book, they'll rate it, they'll review it, they'll get other people excited about it. If they really like it, they'll say, oh my God, this book is amazing, and you should get it right now.
Right.
So we like to be able to build up that. And then for marketing, our marketing department also does a lot of other kind of behind-the-scenes stuff. They book interviews. They print up the galleys to send to reviewers. They talk to our sales team at Simon & Schuster and talk to them about the book and say, here are the strong points, and, it should hit these markets, and, kids who like sci-fi will like this book. So, yeah. There's a lot of work to be done on the marketing side, and that's the bulk of the work that is done in the year between the book being announced and the book being on sale.
Okay. It definitely seems labor intensive, so.
It is. It's a lot of work, mostly for marketing. But Matt and Tintin and Mike all had stuff to do, too. Matt was there. Do you remember any kind of specific things that marketing asked you to do kind of in the lead up to the release date?
Interviews was one. I don't know if they necessarily asked me, but I went to ALA, which is a convention, and that's definitely was part of marketing it.
Right.
Then Tintin had an idea to do some little Instagram ads, so that was a separate thing. There was some more art that Tintin produced that was kind of all the characters in what their Halloween costumes would be. So we worked on that together, too. Those are a few of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. I'll admit it. I love to read. My students do so as well, and they offer so many great suggestions. Thankfully, so does the Junior Library Guild. The Junior Library Guild is a great resource for librarians by offering a service to help me build my collection through a personalized monthly subscription box. I am guaranteed to find a book for every reader in my library. Titles are selected by a renowned editorial team and have included many award-winning books and current bestsellers. With new books delivered every month, at a price I can definitely afford, My readers and myself will have new material to keep us satisfied all year long. For more information, visit www.juniorlibraryguild.com.
What do you look for when you are developing a graphic novel book?
Oh, what do I look for? One I look for is the story worth telling? Has it been told before in some way, shape, or form? Am I excited about it is always the first thing I go for. Whichever one I can't stop thinking about is the one that I should be working on, is usually how I treat it. Then I also definitely look for a good collaborator, because I myself, I love to draw, but I could never do what Tintin does. It would take me Unplugged and Unpopular would be coming out in 2030 if I drew it. I don't have the speed or really the skills. So I look for a good collaborator, because having someone who can draw and do so much work, and someone who can see and I can fit with, and we're on the same wavelength, is so important. And so I'm so grateful that Robyn suggested Tintin, because she's amazing.
So, Robyn, is that something that you like? Do you find that like sometimes easy to do, like match artist with writer, or is it like kind of like a matching game?
Sometimes it works out really well, yeah. Sometimes it's very easy. With Unplugged and Unpopular, it was quite easy. And it kind of fell into my lap, because around the time Matt and I had kind of developed his outline to put through our acquisitions process, I had also found Tintin's portfolio in our open submissions. And it was actually kind of a weird mistake. I think we had found Tintin's portfolio early on, and we kind of marked it to follow up on later, and then it got lost for a very long time. And it was only when I was combing through the last few submissions and finally getting those marked off our list that I came across Tintin's portfolio again, and I thought, oh, shoot, I completely forgot to follow up with Tintin. So I immediately emailed her. I said, I do actually have a book that I would love to put you on, and I'd like to introduce you to the writer. And she was really excited to get started, so that was awesome.
That's great. That's great that it just...
sometimes it's harder.
Yeah.
But I think actually for Matt's book, it has been pretty easy so far. The other one that he told you about that we're working on now, that was also, I kind of had an artist in mind once he started pitching it to me.
Well, when
I sent her work over, Matt liked her too, which I was very excited about. And I thought she especially really had a good style for the time period of the comic, is what I really liked.
That's great when you're able to match up two really good talents together, and you see that partnership just blossom. That works really well. It's a good thing to see and feel.
Mm-hmm.
Are you friends with any of the other graphic novel authors?
Certainly, yeah. I'm so grateful that I'm certainly very friendly with a lot of graphic novel authors. As far as people that are good friends, I have a few good friends who make comics. You actually had one person who I'm quite fond of, who's a pal, Kristen Gretznuck, was on your show, and I really dig her work, and I'm lucky enough to know her.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of other ones, but I don't think many names that you would know. A lot of people that are starting off, because I'm kind of early in my career, and you kind of buddy up with the people that are starting off at the same stage as you.
Right. No, yeah, exactly. You're basically like your schoolmates in a sense, your classmates.
Absolutely, because we're all learning a huge part of this, and I think what will hopefully make it so that I can do this for a while is I'm really excited to learn, and I'm excited to just keep on working at it, because I don't think anyone really comes out of the gate just absolutely perfect. and ready to tell their best story. So I just, I'm excited to keep on learning from people like Robyn and all of my other editors and collaborators.
That's awesome.
Why did you choose to write your stories in a graphic novel form?
This probably goes back to the dyslexia thing I was talking about earlier. It's like I had a lot of trouble reading when I was younger, but comics, and it really, really helped me with my reading because the visuals paired with the words, and that the words that, you know, there's word bubbles that are not huge blocks of text normally, which made it much easier for me to read. So I think it's just I always loved that, and I've always loved comics. So yeah, I think that was probably what got me to it. I'm working on my first prose story, so I'm working on my first not comic, which is an interesting challenge. So maybe not all of my stories will be comics. We'll see. I don't know.
I don't know how you have time to do anything else with all the writing you're doing.
Oh, I mean, well, I'm writing, but it's so different. The time consuming part of comics is really the art. I mean, I certainly put a lot of thought into my writing and focus on it a lot, but I certainly wouldn't be having the amount of books that I'm working on. I would absolutely not be able to do if I was drawing them.
Right.
Just because drawing just takes a lot of time.
Yes.
What is your favorite book/comic book that you have ever read?
That's a really hard question because there's a lot. I really, really loved a book called Why the Last Man. That might be for you guys a little later.
For this age group, but I'm a big fan of it. So
yeah, I really liked that because there was a lot of, looking back on it, I realized why I liked it so much. There's so much traveling in it, and when I was younger, I never traveled. I just basically stayed in New England and New York, so it was cool to see someone having this huge traveling adventure. But then I really love Raina Telgemeier's books. I like Be Prepared by Vera Brosco is one of my more recent favorites. I like all of her stuff. There's a book called Hey Kiddo.
I love that book.
I absolutely love it. It actually takes place in the town over from where I grew up, and around the time I grew up. So there's just something kind of fun about, an extra level of fun about that for me. I notice a lot of the landmarks that he draws.
Some of the kids here, they are literally just like, I'm reading that book right now. I have that book. So it's you're saying all the right ones.
Giant Days. I should definitely mention that. That's one of the best comics period right now, I think. But again, probably a little for when you guys are a little older. I think that one might be for you.
And Robyn, how about you?
Let's see. Well, my favorite graphic novel, I think, is also a little bit too old, but it's called Beautiful Darkness. I believe it was translated from French. So it's a French comic about basically a world of very tiny people who live inside of a young girl's head. It sounds very weird, but it's really good, and I think the title kind of fits it perfectly. It's a very dark story, but it's also very beautiful. Aside from that, I really like the Hilda books by Luke Pearson.
Yeah.
Those ones are really good. I really like that series. And then I also read a lot of manga, and I think my favorite manga series is a recent one called Nisekoi.
Okay.
Which is like a YA title, but I like it because it's really funny, and I like funny books quite a bit.
Nice. You need the humor with it.
Mhm.
Why do you feel the graphic novel genre has such a surge over the last few years?
Robyn, do you want to take that first, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can try. I think, I'm not an expert. I'm only an expert on, what I think makes a good story and kind of my own personal opinion on graphic novels. But I know, like, as a kid, I really gravitated to graphic novels because I was very artsy. And I loved seeing other people's drawings. And back when I was a kid, there were very few graphic novels around. I mostly read newspaper comics because there weren't really a lot of graphic novels for kids during the 90s, pretty much. But yeah, I read a lot of comics just because I really, really liked the drawings, and I think a big part of why comics resonate, especially with kids, is kind of that idea, like identifying with an art style. Like, probably a lot of you have read like a bunch of different comics, and there's some comics you really, really like the art for, and then there's other comics where you think, no, I don't really like that style, and I'm not so much into it. Art is so subjective, but I think it also has the opportunity to connect with somebody more emotionally than just prose. When you see a really good piece of art that you love, it's like you can't get it out of your head, right?
Right.
So I think comics is kind of the same way. Like, when you see a really good comic, like, those pictures kind of become a part of you almost. Like, you identify with those pictures. You love those pictures. And, of course, there's that old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Because, of course, like, you can take a comic panel from any comic, even a very simple panel, and you could probably write 1,000 words about what's going on in just that panel. Right. So it's like it's an extra kind of way of reading something. Like, you're reading visually, you are taking in images, and your mind is kind of translating them into, what is that image telling you. And so I think that's a big part of why art is subjective, is like, you can look at a piece of art and you can get 1,000 words from it in your mind, and somebody else can look at that piece of art and get a different 1,000 words. So two people can look at the same piece of art and get two completely different stories. And so I think some of the best comics use that to their advantage, and so they give you a visual image, or many, many images over the course of many panels that can tell you two different stories depending on how you look at it. And that's much harder to do in prose because they're very exact. That's why we have a dictionary, to tell us what words mean. So there's never any confusion. Right. But there's no art dictionary. So symbols and drawings are kind of up to our own interpretation.
Okay. Yeah,
very, very long-winded answer.
No, it's just because...
Great answer.
But it's a great answer just because I've seen so many, like, the way graphic novels, like, I can't keep them on my shelf, and that they're more than just, like, superhero-related, which is what I grew up with. And it's seeing that it's so much more of, like, autobiographies, like Hey Kiddo, more historical, we're more of, like, the fantasy and sci-fi, but realistic in the same way, like, and it's touching on social issues so much more now. That's why I just always feel like it's still like such an untapped resource for so many readers.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I do think there's a part of that too.
We have one last question right now, because then these kids have to get off and get back to class. So, Annabelle?
All right, so this is going to be a bit of a random question. What's your zodiac sign?
I'm an Aquarius.
Okay.
I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, okay.
Me too.
I'm a Taurus.
I feel like I fit the Scorpio label pretty well.
Right.
But apparently, my mom told me that I was actually born 2 weeks earlier than I was supposed to be, so I should technically be a Sagittarius.
Ah, okay.
But I just made it into being a Scorpio.
Nice. But okay, unfortunately I have to get these kids out of here. They have to go take assessments and, go learn things. So we wanted just to say thank you again so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with us about your books, your writing process, what graphic novels mean to you, because they mean a heck of a lot to myself, my students, and our listeners right now too. So it's been an honor talking with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting us. And for coming up with awesome questions.
I know. I have budding interviewers here, like reporters. So I'm impressed with them.
Me too.
So thank you again. We wish you all the great success with your upcoming books, Matt. And Robyn, I hope you guys continue to get to work together more and more and keep producing these amazing books.
Thank you. Yes,
sure
I
will.
hope so too.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be looking for your stuff soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye,
guys.
everybody. Bye, Matt.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. A very special thanks to Matt and Robyn for joining us today and letting us pick their brain about how graphic novels are made and how it takes a team to produce a stellar novel. To learn more about Matt, visit @MattHeagerty.com or follow him on Twitter @MattHeagerty. You can follow Robyn on Twitter @Herrericus. To learn more about books Robyn is working on, visit Oni Press at onipress.com. That's ONIPress.com or on Twitter @OniPress. Today's episode was produced by me, Miss S, in the school's library. Thank you to all of our wonderful hosts today. You can follow Amongst the Books on Twitter @AmongstTheBooks_podcast and on Instagram @AmongstTheBooksPodcast. Our theme music was written, performed, and recorded by Jake Thistle. You can follow Jake at www.jakethistle.com or on Instagram @Jake_Thistle_music. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us, and be sure to share us with your friends. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon.